You've been walking around thinking that the way you've always thought is the way you have to keep thinking. But I came to tell you, your thoughts are not cement. They are not set in stone. They are seeds. And the seeds you plant in your mind will become the harvest you walk into tomorrow. You can't expect a harvest of peace when you're planting seeds of worry. You can't expect a harvest of abundance when you're planting seeds of lack. You can't expect a harvest of joy when you're constantly watering the roots of bitterness. Your mind is the steering wheel of your life. Wherever your thoughts turn, your life will follow. If you keep steering toward fear, you will end up in a place where fear rules your decisions. If you keep steering toward defeat, you will park your life in a place where nothing ever changes. But if you turn your mind toward faith, toward hope, toward the possibilities of God's promises, your whole life will begin to shift in that direction. The enemy's greatest attack is not always against your circumstances. It's against your thoughts. Because if he can capture your thoughts, he can control your life without ever touching your body. That's why you can be free on the outside and still locked up on the inside. That's why you can live in a nice house, drive a good car, dress in the finest clothes, and still feel like you're living in a prison. It's not the walls around you. It's the walls inside you. You have been living under the weight of thoughts that were never meant to define you. Thoughts that came from people who didn't know your destiny. Thoughts that came from your past mistakes. Thoughts that came from the lies you've told yourself so long that you started to believe them. But I declare to you today, this is the season to evict those thoughts. This is the moment to tell your mind, we're under new management now. You cannot have a new life with an old mindset. You can pray for new opportunities, but if your mind is still locked in old patterns, you will sabotage what you prayed for. You can cry for change, but if your thinking has not shifted, you will walk right back into the same cycles. That's why the real battle is not in your job, your bank account, or your relationships. It's in your mind. If you want to change your future, you have to change your internal conversation. You have to catch yourself when you start speaking defeat. You have to correct yourself when you start thinking small. You have to confront yourself when you start rehearsing fear. Because you are the gatekeeper of your mind. You decide what gets to live there. If you let toxic thoughts rent space in your head, they will drain your joy and poison your vision. But if you choose to plant thoughts of victory, of growth, of possibility, they will create a climate for miracles in your life. Stop telling yourself it's too late. Stop telling yourself you're not enough. Stop telling yourself nothing will change. Your mind believes whatever you feed it. If you feed it hopelessness, it will starve your faith. But if you feed it with truth, with faith, with vision, it will produce a future that reflects those thoughts. I know the past has been heavy. I know the pain has been real. I know the failures have been loud. But don't let yesterday's voice narrate tomorrow's story. Your future is not waiting for your circumstances to change. It's waiting for your thinking to change. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. If you want to walk like a victor, think like one. If you want to live like you are free, think like you are free. If you want to see the goodness of God in the land of the living, think on things that are true, noble, pure, and praiseworthy. Some of you have been asking God for a breakthrough, but God is saying, I'm waiting for you to break through in your mind first. Because if He gives you a breakthrough while your thoughts are still bound, you will drag the same chains into the new season. But if you break free in your mind first, the moment the door opens, you will run through it without hesitation, without fear, without looking back. This is your moment to take control of your thoughts. This is your season to decide that your mind will no longer be a breeding ground for doubt, defeat, and despair. This is the time to plant seeds of faith, to water them with expectation, and to watch as your future begins to bloom into something greater than you ever imagined. Your thoughts are not passive. They are not harmless little whispers that pass through your mind without consequence. They are active forces shaping the world you live in before you ever take a single step. Every single thing you are experiencing right now began as a thought. The way you see yourself, the way you respond to challenges, the way you interpret opportunities, all of it is colored and framed by the thoughts you've been carrying. It is impossible to live a life that is not consistent with the dominant patterns of your thinking. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner conversation. If your thoughts are filled with fear, anxiety, and defeat, you will unconsciously create situations and environments that match those emotions. If your thoughts are filled with faith, vision, and determination, you will find yourself walking into doors you never imagined would open. Imagine for a moment that your mind is a field. Whatever you plant there, whether good or bad, will grow if you keep feeding it. If you plant seeds of doubt, seeds of comparison, seeds of negativity, then over time, those seeds will take root and grow into weeds that choke the life out of your dreams. They will strangle your creativity, sap your energy, and leave you convinced that nothing better is possible. On the other hand, if you plant seeds of possibility, seeds of confidence, seeds of gratitude, those will grow as well. And in time, they will bear fruit that sustains you through storms and seasons of struggle. The danger is that many people underestimate just how powerful a single thought can be. A thought doesn't stay a thought. It becomes a belief. A belief shapes your choices. Your choices form your habits. Your habits build your character. And your character determines your destiny. All of it begins with a thought. You cannot expect to live in peace if your mind is a breeding ground for turmoil. You cannot expect to experience joy if your mind is constantly rehearsing pain. You cannot expect to see abundance if all you ever think about is lack. Your mind is like the thermostat in your house. It sets the climate of your life. If the thermostat is set to low expectations, you will keep turning down opportunities that feel too big for you. If it is set to fear, you will avoid risks that could have led to growth. But if you set it to faith and expectation, your entire life will begin to rise to meet that level. Some of you are living in environments that you don't like. But the truth is, the environment around you is the mirror of the environment inside you. When you shift your thinking, you shift your atmosphere. You've been asking for a better job, but your mind is still telling you that you're not qualified. You've been praying for a healthier relationship, but your thoughts are still rooted in the hurt from the last one. You've been dreaming about starting that business, but your inner conversation keeps telling you that you'll fail. The truth is, your feet will not go where your mind has not gone first. If you don't see yourself there, in your thoughts, you won't walk there in your reality. It's not enough to just think positive for a moment. You have to cultivate a consistent mindset that aligns with the future you want. That means every time a thought of defeat tries to creep in, you confront it. Every time a thought of fear shows up, you replace it. Every time a thought of unworthiness tries to linger, you reject it. You have to be intentional about what you allow to stay in your mind, because your mind will believe whatever you feed it. If you feed it stories of failure, it will prepare you for failure. If you feed it stories of victory, it will prepare you for victory. The problem is, many of us are more loyal to our old way of thinking than we are to the new life we say we want. We cling to old mental scripts because they feel familiar, even when they are hurting us. But familiarity can be the enemy of your future. You can't keep thinking like a victim and expect to live like a victor. You can't keep telling yourself you're not enough and expect to seize opportunities with confidence. You can't keep meditating on your limitations and expect to step into your potential. The harvest you are living in today is the result of seeds you planted yesterday. The harvest you will live in tomorrow will be the result of the seeds you plant today. That's why you can't afford to let your thoughts run wild without direction. You have to be a gardener of your own mind. You have to pull out the weeds and plant intentionally. When you think thoughts of gratitude, you open the door to joy. When you think thoughts of faith, you open the door to miracles. When you think thoughts of possibility, you open the door to opportunities that others can't even see. Your thoughts can either build a bridge to your future, or a wall that keeps you trapped in your past. They can either propel you forward, or chain you to where you've always been. That's why you can meet two people in the exact same situation, same struggle, same setback, and watch one of them rise above it while the other sinks deeper into it. The difference isn't luck. It isn't resource. It's the pattern of their thinking. One says, "This is the end for me," and it becomes the end. The other says, "This is just the beginning," and it becomes the beginning. Your future is already being written in your mind. Long before the opportunity comes, your thoughts are deciding how you'll respond to it. Long before the challenge arrives, your thoughts are determining whether you'll crumble or rise. That's why the most powerful thing you can do for your future is to take ownership of your thinking today. Stop letting your mind be a playground for fear, for doubt, for insecurity. Start making it a workshop for vision, for faith, for possibility. When you start changing the way you think, you'll notice that the world starts looking different. Not because the world changed first, but because you did. Doors will seem to appear where there used to be walls. Solutions will show up where there used to be problems. Opportunities will seem to find you. But in truth, they were there all along. You just couldn't see them with the old mindset. Once your thoughts shift, your perception shifts. And when your perception shifts, your reality has no choice but to follow. The greatest battles you will ever fight will not be in boardrooms, on battlefields, or in front of crowds. They will be in the quiet, hidden space between your ears. It is in the mind that wars are won or lost long before a single move is made in the physical world. That's why the enemy doesn't have to touch your hands to keep you from building. He doesn't have to bind your feet to keep you from walking. If he can seize control of your thoughts, he can paralyze your purpose. He knows that if your mind is defeated, your actions will follow. There are people who look completely free on the outside. No chains, no bars, no restrictions. Yet they are serving a life sentence in the prison of their own mind. They replay old failures like they are on an endless loop. They let the insults of others echo so loudly that they drown out their own inner voice. They accept limitations that were never meant to be theirs. The mind can be a cell, and the key to that cell is in your own hand. But if you don't recognize that the lock is in your thinking, you will keep pacing in circles, waiting for someone else to set you free. The mind is the enemy's first battlefield because it is the command center of your life. Everything you do flows from the thoughts you hold. If he can make you think you're powerless, you will act powerless. If he can make you believe you are unworthy, you will shrink back from opportunities that were meant for you. If he can convince you that nothing will change, you will stop trying, stop reaching, stop believing. That's why sometimes the real fight is not with what's happening around you, but with what's happening inside you. Think about it. Two people can walk into the exact same storm. One says, "This storm is going to destroy me," and fear takes over. The other says, "This storm is just proof that I'm heading somewhere worth going," and courage rises up. The storm didn't change. It's the same wind, the same rain, the same lightning. But the mindset is different, and the mindset determines the outcome. The battle was won or lost before the first drop of rain even fell. The mind has a way of magnifying the wrong things if it is left unguarded. Small problems can become giants when you rehearse them over and over. Tiny delays can feel like permanent denials when you meditate on them instead of the promise ahead. The enemy knows he doesn't have to remove the blessings from your life if he can make you so consumed with fear, doubt, and worry that you can't see them. He can rob you of joy not by taking anything away, but by convincing you that you never had enough to begin with. This is why you cannot afford to be passive about what goes on in your mind. You cannot sit back and let thoughts come and go as they please like uninvited guests. You have to be the guard at the gate, the protector of your mental territory. Just like you wouldn't let a stranger walk into your home and start tearing it apart, you can't let destructive thoughts walk into your mind and start dismantling your peace. You have to recognize them for what they are and evict them before they take root. So many of the battles we face are prolonged simply because we are fighting the wrong fight. We're swinging at people, at circumstances, at situations, when the real fight is against the lies and narratives that have been built up in our mind. If you don't take down the strongholds in your thinking, you will keep rebuilding the same obstacles even after you've torn them down in the natural. That's why you can leave a toxic job and find yourself in another one just like. That's why you can walk away from one destructive relationship and end up in the same dynamic with a different person. Until the thoughts that allowed you to stay in that environment are addressed, you will keep finding yourself back in similar situations. The enemy's strategy is to plant seeds of doubt when you are vulnerable, to whisper lies when you are tired, to twist truths when you are seeking answers. He will remind you of every mistake you've ever made, every weakness you've ever had, every rejection you've ever faced, until you start to believe that those things define you. If he can make you forget who you are, he can make you forfeit what is yours. And the moment you agree with his lies in your mind, you will begin to live them out without even realizing it. This is why renewing your mind is not a suggestion. It is a survival strategy. You cannot fight today's battles with yesterday's thinking. You have to daily wash your mind in truth, reset your focus, and remind yourself of what's possible. Every morning you have to decide, I will not let fear have the first word today. I will not let doubt have the last word today. My mind will be filled with the vision of where I am going, not the memory of where I have been. You may not be able to control every thought that tries to enter your mind, but you can control which ones get to stay. Thoughts are like birds. You can't stop them from flying overhead, but you can stop them from building a nest in your hair. Some thoughts are passing intruders and you need to let them pass. Others try to settle in, but you have the power to uproot. That is where the real battle is fought. Not in keeping negative thoughts from ever coming, but in refusing to let them set the atmosphere of your life. If you win the war in your mind, you can face anything in your life. Because when your mind is strong, your spirit is anchored. Your heart is steady. You can look at adversity and see opportunity. You can face a closed door and know it's not the end. You can endure seasons of waiting without letting despair take over. The fight may still rage around you, but you will stand in the middle of it, with a calm that makes no sense to anyone else. You can have limited resources and still live with an abundance mindset that sees possibilities everywhere. You can have people doubt you and still carry yourself with the confidence of someone who knows where they're going. You can face delays without letting impatience push you into the wrong decision. That's the power of winning in your mind. It shapes how you respond to everything else. Once you understand that the mind is the true battlefield, you stop wasting energy trying to fix symptoms and start dealing with the root. You stop chasing external changes while ignoring the internal one. You stop trying to change the picture on the outside without first developing the negative inside. Because the truth is, when your mind shifts, everything shifts. And when your mind is anchored in truth, no storm, no attack, no lie can shake the foundation you're standing on. You can't step into a new season of life while carrying the same mindset that kept you bound in the last one. A change in scenery will not transform you if your thinking remains the same. You can move to a new city, start a new job, meet new people, and yet still repeat the same cycles if the way you think about yourself, your potential, and your future hasn't shifted. The truth is, the atmosphere around you responds to the climate within you. Until your inner world changes, your outer world will eventually conform to match it. People often believe that if they could just get a fresh start, everything would be different. But a fresh start without a fresh mind is nothing more than a relocation of the same old struggle. You can dress differently, talk differently, even surround yourself with different people, But if the old patterns of doubt, fear, and limitation are still running in your mind, they will eventually show up in your decisions and behavior. The old mindset will sabotage the new opportunities because it is programmed to expect, accept, and reproduce the same outcomes you've always known. A new life requires new programming. Your mind has been conditioned over years, sometimes decades, by your experiences, your upbringing, your culture, and your own inner conversation. If you were told over and over again that you weren't enough, that you'd never succeed, that nothing ever changes for people like you, those words have shaped the default settings of your mind. And if you've never challenged those settings, they will keep running quietly in the background, influencing everything you do without you even realizing it. That's why a new opportunity can come, and you'll talk yourself out of it. That's why a door can open, and you'll hesitate until it closes. That's why blessings can be placed in your hands, and you'll handle them like you're expecting to lose them. When your mindset doesn't match your opportunities, you will always shrink your opportunities to match your mindset. This is why so many people cycle through the same struggles year after year. It's not that opportunities aren't available, it's that their internal capacity hasn't expanded to hold them. You can't pour new wine into old wineskins, and you can't live a new life with old thought patterns. Those old patterns will stretch and tear until they spill out everything you've worked for. Changing your mindset isn't just about thinking positive in the moment, it's about building an entirely new mental framework that can sustain where you're going. It means confronting the lies you've believed, dismantling the fears that have been running your life, and replacing them with truth and possibility. It means refusing to make decisions based on old wounds, outdated stories, and past failure. It means learning to think in alignment with your destiny instead of your history. Some of you have been frustrated because it feels like you've been walking in circles. You keep running into the same types of problems, the same types of disappointments, the same types of people. And it's not because you're cursed or unlucky, it's because your mindset is recreating the same patterns over and over. You can leave Egypt, but if Egypt is still in your mind, you will find a way to rebuild it wherever you go. Until you renew your thinking, you will keep defaulting to the comfort of the familiar, even if the familiar is toxic. The reason this is so challenging is because your mind will always fight for what feels familiar. It doesn't care if that familiarity is painful. It only knows that it's predictable. New ways of thinking feel uncomfortable because they disrupt the patterns you've lived in for so long. If you've been used to expecting the worst, believing for the best will feel strange. If you've been used to playing small, thinking big will feel risky. If you've been used to doubting yourself, walking in confidence will feel unnatural. But just because something feels unfamiliar doesn't mean it's wrong. It means you're breaking free from the old and stepping into the new. You have to train your mind to think differently before you can live differently. That training happens every time you choose a thought that lines up with your vision instead of your fear. It happens every time you challenge a belief that no longer serves you. It happens every time you refuse to let an old story dictate your new chapter. Your mind is like a muscle. It gets stronger with intentional use. The more you practice new patterns of thought, the more natural they become. Until one day the old mindset no longer has the power to pull you back. You can pray for a new season, but if your thoughts are still loyal to the last one, you will miss it when it comes. You can ask God for increase, but if you're still thinking in terms of lack, you won't recognize abundance even when it's in front of you. You can dream of a new relationship, but if you're still thinking in terms of rejection, you'll interpret every action as proof that it won't last. That's why mindset work is not optional. It's the foundation for every other change you want to see in your life. Your future cannot be built on the bricks of your old limitations. The construction of a new life requires tearing down the mental structures that were built to survive in a different season. In the old season, you may have needed certain defenses just to get through. But now those same defenses are walls that block you from growth. In the old season, you may have learned to keep your dreams small so you wouldn't get disappointed. But now that small thinking is keeping you from the opportunities that require boldness. When you start to change your mindset, you start to change what you allow yourself to expect. You begin to see possibility where you once saw obstacles. You begin to prepare for success instead of bracing for failure. You begin to speak life over your situation instead of rehearsing defeat. And little by little, the way you think starts to shape the way you live, until your outer reality begins to reflect the inner transformation. If you truly want a new life, you have to be willing to let go of the mental habits that kept you comfortable in the old one. That might mean letting go of excuses that once felt valid. It might mean refusing to tell the same old story about why things didn't work out. It might mean forgiving yourself so you can stop using guilt as a reason to stay still. It might mean letting go of the identity you've built around your pain so you can embrace the identity built around your purpose. The moment your mindset changes, everything else begins to shift. You stop trying to fit into the mold of your past and start expanding into the shape of your future. You stop lowering your standards to match what you've always known and start raising them to match what you now believe is possible. And when your mind truly aligns with your vision, your decisions, your actions, and your environment will follow. Because you cannot keep living the old life once your mind has fully stepped into the new one. The most important conversation you will ever have is not with another person. It is the one you have with yourself. Every day without fail, you are speaking to yourself in your mind. You are interpreting situations, evaluating yourself, and predicting outcomes, often without even realizing it. This constant inner dialogue is shaping how you see the world and how you see yourself in it. You cannot talk yourself into defeat all day and expect to live in victory. You cannot speak to yourself in fear and expect to walk in courage. You cannot feed your mind with small thinking and expect your life to expand into big possibilities. Guarding your internal conversation means becoming intentional about what you say to yourself. It means catching those thoughts that slip in unnoticed and examining whether they align with the life you want to live. The mind will accept whatever you tell it, whether it's true or not, so you have to be careful about the messages you repeat. If you keep telling yourself you are not enough, eventually you will start living as if that is the truth. If you keep telling yourself that success is for other people, your actions will reflect that belief, and you will push opportunities away. If you keep telling yourself that nothing good ever happens for you, your mind will filter the world in a way that confirms that belief. The way you speak to yourself becomes the framework for your decisions. When your internal conversation is filled with hope, you move different. You take risks. You pursue opportunities. You show up fully because you believe something good can happen. But when your internal conversation is full of doubt, you play small, you hesitate, you hold back, even when the door is wide open. Your internal voice either fuels you or freezes you. It either builds you up or tears you down. This is why it is so important to confront your inner dialogue when it starts running in the wrong direction. Negative thoughts often disguise themselves as fact. They will dress themselves in the clothing of truth because you've thought them for so long. I'm just not that type of person. People like me don't get those kinds of breaks. I always mess things up. Statements like these feel familiar, and because they're familiar, they feel safe, even though they are toxic. You have to stop letting familiarity decide what is true. When you begin to guard your internal conversation, you will notice how often your mind tries to revert to old scripts. Those old scripts might have come from things people said to you when you were younger. They might have come from one failure that you replayed so many times it became part of your identity. They might have come from comparing yourself to others until you convinced yourself that you would never measure up. Whatever their origin, you have the power to rewrite them. You can interrupt those thoughts mid-sentence and replace them with something that supports your growth. It's not enough to simply remove the negative, you have to replace it with something stronger. The human mind doesn't like empty space. If you take out a destructive thought and don't put anything in its place, another destructive thought will eventually move in. When you catch yourself thinking, "I'll probably fail," replace it with, I am learning and growing every day, and I will give my best. When you catch yourself thinking, I'm not worthy of this opportunity, replace it with, I am prepared and capable and I belong in this room. This is not pretending reality doesn't exist. It's choosing to interpret reality in a way that builds your future, instead of burying it. The voice inside you is the loudest one you will ever hear, because it is the only one you cannot escape. You can walk away from negative people, but you cannot walk away from yourself. You can block destructive voices on social media, but you cannot mute your own thoughts. That's why this work is not optional. It's essential. You are either reinforcing your purpose or undermining it every time you open your mouth in your mind. When your inner voice shifts, everything around you shifts. You stop overthinking every move and start trusting your instincts. You stop doubting your worth and start showing up as if you belong. You stop rehearsing every worst-case scenario and start expecting good things to happen. This change in your internal conversation begins to leak into your external life. The way you talk to yourself affects the way you carry yourself, the way you approach challenges, and the way others respond to you. Many people are waiting for someone else to affirm them, to believe in them, to speak life into them. But the truth is, even if they did, it wouldn't matter unless you believed it yourself. You could have 100 people tell you that you are talented, and it will mean nothing if your own voice is saying they're just being nice. You could have every opportunity placed in your hands, and it will slip through your fingers if your own thoughts say, I don't deserve this. Your internal voice has the final say. Guarding your internal conversation also means being aware of what you're feeding your mind. The music you listen to, the shows you watch, the conversations you have, the content you consume, all of it becomes raw material for your thoughts. If you constantly feed yourself fear, drama, and negativity, your mind will naturally echo those themes. But if you feed yourself hope, wisdom, and truth, your mind will have the ingredients it needs to build you up from the inside out. This is not an overnight change. You don't rewrite years of destructive self-talk in a single moment. But you can begin today, one thought at a time. Each time you choose a thought that empowers you instead of one that limits you, you are building a new foundation. Each time you refuse to let fear have the final word in your mind, you are strengthening your mental resilience. Each time you replace an old script with a new declaration, you are rewriting your identity. And over time, this guarded, intentional inner dialogue becomes a natural habit. You begin to recognize quickly when a thought doesn't belong. You reject it without hesitation because you know the cost of letting it stay. You speak to yourself with the same encouragement and grace you would give to someone you love. You stop tearing yourself down and start building yourself up. Not with empty flattery, but with truth that reminds you of who you are and what you are capable of. When you master your internal conversation, you no longer wait for external validation to feel secure. You no longer let other people's criticism outweigh your own confidence. You no longer let circumstances dictate your self-worth. You become anchored from within. And when you are anchored from within, the storms on the outside lose their power to shake you. Before you can walk into the future you've been dreaming about, you have to be willing to fight the battle in your mind and win it. Too many people are waiting for their circumstances to change before they change their thinking. But the truth is, the order is the other way around. Your mind has to arrive before your body does. Your thoughts have to step into the new season before your feet do. If you don't break free in your mind first, you'll step into new places carrying the same old chains, and those chains will eventually pull you right back to where you started. There's a reason people can leave a difficult situation and after some time find themselves in another one, just like it. It's because they left physically, but not mentally. They walked out of one environment, but they never walked out of the mindset that kept them there. A prison is still a prison, whether it's made of concrete walls or mental barriers. And if the bars are in your mind, it doesn't matter how far you go, you'll still be trapped. The only way to truly experience freedom is to break those mental chains before the doors ever open. Breaking free in your mind means you stop identifying yourself by the limits of your past. It means you refuse to measure your worth by your failures. It means you stop rehearsing the same painful story so often that it becomes the soundtrack of your life. It means you stop agreeing with every thought that tells you to play small, stay quiet, or settle where you are. Because if you believe the lies long enough, you'll start living them without question. You cannot take old thinking into a new season and expect to thrive. If you do, you will shrink every opportunity to match your comfort zone. You will interpret every challenge as proof that you don't belong there. You will talk yourself out of doors that were meant to be walked through. That's why the transformation has to start on the inside. The thoughts you think today are training you for the opportunities of tomorrow. If you want to run when the moment comes, you have to strengthen your mental legs now. The challenge is that mental chains don't always announce themselves. They don't always look like fear, or sometimes they disguise themselves as caution, as logic, as just being realistic. They might even sound responsible. I shouldn't dream too big because I might get disappointed. But if you strip away the surface, you'll see that underneath, it's the same thing. Fear keeping you from stepping into the fullness of your future. That's why you have to examine every thought and ask, is this moving me forward or holding me back? Is this preparing me for where I'm going, or keeping me stuck where I am? There are people who have been praying for a breakthrough for years. But the truth is, if the breakthrough came right now, they wouldn't be able to handle it. Not because they're unworthy, but because their mindset isn't ready. If you still think like a prisoner, you will use your freedom to recreate the same prison. If you still think like someone who is overlooked, you will sabotage your moment in the spotlight. If you still think like someone who is broke, you will mishandle abundance. That's why God will sometimes hold the door closed. Not to keep you out, but to give you time to renew your mind so you can walk through it without hesitation. When it finally swings open, you have to learn to carry freedom in your mind before you carry it in your hand. That means seeing yourself as capable before anyone else does. It means imagining yourself in rooms you've never been in, holding responsibilities you've never had, living in places you've never seen. It means building a mental picture of victory so strong that when you arrive, you feel like you've been there all along. If your mind is ready, the physical step will feel natural. Breaking free mentally also means letting go of the safety nets that keep you tied to your old life. Sometimes those safety nets are people who keep reminding you of who you used to be. Sometimes they are habits that make you feel secure but keep you stagnant. Sometimes they are patterns of thinking that have kept you safe from disappointment by keeping you away from risk. You can't run into the future while holding on to those anchors. You have to cut them loose in your mind first. So when the time comes, you can move without resistance. When you do the work to break free mentally, you develop a different posture. You carry yourself like someone who is ready. You speak like someone who belongs. You make decisions from a place of faith instead of fear. And that confidence doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from preparation. You've already walked through this season in your mind 100 times. You've already dealt with the challenges in your thoughts. You've already made the adjustments mentally. So when reality catches up, it feels like a continuation, not a shock. Think of it like an athlete training before the big game. They don't wait until the day of to prepare. They train their body and visualize their plays so that when the whistle blows, their reactions are automatic. In the same way, if you train your mind for the life you want, your responses will already be aligned with where you're going. You won't have to talk yourself into courage when the moment comes. You'll already be walking in it. There's a subtle danger in waiting for your environment to change before your mindset does. If you tell yourself, I'll believe when I see it, you'll never see it, because your actions won't match the belief required to get there. Faith means believing before the evidence shows. It means speaking like it's already done, thinking like it's already yours, moving like it's already possible. That's not wishful thinking. It's mental preparation for the life you're building. The truth is, every breakthrough begins as a mental one. Before the business succeeds, The entrepreneur has to see it succeeding in their mind. Before the relationship thrives, the person has to believe they are worthy of love. Before the attic gets clean, they have to picture themselves living free. Before the door opens, the person has to believe they are ready to walk through it. The shift always happens in the mind first. So if you're in a season where the door hasn't opened yet, don't waste the time. Use it to prepare yourself mentally. Start thinking like the person you want to be. Start speaking the language of your future instead of your past. Start picturing yourself in the victory long before you hold it in your hands. Because when your mind is already free, no door, no opportunity, no blessing will intimidate you. You'll walk into it like it was made for you. And here's the powerful part. Once your mind is free, it stays free. Even if challenges come, even if people doubt you, even if circumstances shift, you'll still carry that inner liberty. That freedom will keep you moving forward when others get stuck. It will allow you to see beyond the obstacle to the opportunity. It will keep you anchored when the winds of change blow hard. Because you've already won the battle where it matters most, in your mind. Change is not something that happens to you, it's something that happens through you. Your life will always rise or fall to the level of your thinking. If you want to see a future filled with purpose, growth, and victory, you must first cultivate a mind that can carry it. Don't wait for your circumstances to give you permission to think differently. Start renewing your mind now. Train your thoughts to agree with where you're going, not where you've been. The moment you decide to think higher, to speak life over yourself, to imagine possibilities beyond your current reality, you unlock the door to transformation. Your thoughts are the architects of your destiny. So build a future worth walking into, one thought at a time.